Today we are going to have a presentation for a webinar. It's going to be hosted by Mary Dunkel, Catherine Blandfield, Marcia Lane, and we are going to have a walkthrough of their webinar or their website. And our hope is that we can gain some knowledge on how to use their website. I would like to gain some knowledge on if you have a new diagnosis or want to gain more experience on how to look up symptoms or how to share information about a disorder or a diagnosis that you have with others, that it would be a resource for you. The other thing that I'm looking forward to hearing about today is financial resources that can be available for different situations and how you would access those resources. We also can learn today that research projects or other organizations and advocate groups that could be available for families. So with that, our presentation today is sponsored by Heartland Collaborative, and so I'd like to thank them. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Mary Dunkel and NORD organization.
Thank you, Michelle, and hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to Heartland and Michelle for this invitation to spend some time with you. We really appreciate your interest, and we want to answer any questions you may have and hopefully make our website as helpful to you as it can be. We thought we'd start by just sharing a few slides about NORD in case you're not familiar with the organization, just to tell you a little bit about who we are and how NORD came into existence, and then we'll go on to the website and just do a walkthrough of some of the pages that we think may be helpful to you. So first of all, NORD is an umbrella organization that's been around since 1983, and it represents all Americans who have rare diseases and their families, and we also work very closely with hundreds of disease-specific patient organizations for people with specific rare diseases. But the reason that there was a need for NORD was that there are many challenges related to living with a rare disease that, even though there are many different diseases, the challenges are in many cases similar. And we all realized back in 1983, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, that even though individually we were rare, our diseases affected only small numbers of people, when we came together and spoke together, we were able to accomplish much more on behalf of all of us. So that's why NORD is here. We represent the 30 million Americans who have rare diseases, and that's approximately 1 in 10 people. So, as I said, our message is the importance of speaking with one voice, and our mission is that NORD is committed to the identification, treatment, and cure of rare diseases for patients and families. Just a few quick rare disease facts. There are more than 7,000 diseases that are considered rare in the U.S. Rare is defined as affecting fewer than 200,000 Americans. And if you ever want to see the list of all 7,000, they are on the National Institutes of Health website. As we mentioned, approximately 1 in 10 Americans are affected. So when people hear the word rare, sometimes they think, that doesn't apply to me, but it applies to everyone. Every single person knows someone with a rare disease. Some of the things that are in common among the rare diseases are that there is significant unmet medical need for the patients and their families. Only about 500 of these 7,000 diseases currently have FDA-approved treatments. There's too little research. NORD is constantly providing advocacy on behalf of more research funding at the federal level through the NIH for research on rare diseases. And we also need education and awareness, and that's one of NORD's priorities. So just to give you a really brief, quick history, 33 years ago, back in the early 1980s, in the decade before 1983, there were only 10 products brought to market for diseases considered rare at that time. So there were, at that time, really only a few organizations for people, patient organizations for people with rare diseases. But the leaders of some of those groups got together, and one of the people who helped bring them together was Abby Myers, who was one of the primary founders of NORD. And at that time, she was affiliated with the Tourette Syndrome Foundation. But several of these groups came together, and they realized that they needed to work together to try to get some legislation passed by Congress to help encourage the development of more treatments for people with rare diseases. So these patient organization leaders formed an ad hoc coalition. They didn't have any sort of formal training. Most of them actually were patients or parents of patients, but they played a very significant role in getting a law passed by Congress in 1983 that's called the Orphan Drug Act. And this law is generally considered to have been extremely successful. Over the years, it's resulted in hundreds of treatments being developed for rare diseases. And essentially what the law does is provide 7 years of marketing exclusivity. It provides a tax credit and some other financial incentives to encourage pharmaceutical companies to do the research and development that's necessary to develop a new treatment and bring it to market. So at that time, after the law got passed in January of 1983, and the patient leaders realized that they really could accomplish a lot when they worked together. So that's when they formed NORD. And in May of 1983, NORD was formally launched, and we provide services in essentially 4 areas. One is advocacy. We have an office in Washington, D.C., and our colleagues there spend most of their time on Capitol Hill in meetings with congressional staff or at other government offices advocating on behalf of rare disease patients. We also have a patient services department, and my colleague Catherine, who's a registered nurse, is going to talk to you in just a few minutes about what that department does. We have an education department, and that's the department that I represent. We provide education for patients, families, medical professionals preparing for healthcare careers. And Marcia Lanes, who's a genetic counselor in our education department, will also be speaking to you in a few minutes. We also have a research program here that provides research grants for rare diseases, which are funded primarily by patients, their families and friends, their coworkers, and sometimes by patient organizations. And NORD has a wonderful medical advisory committee of physicians who are experts on various rare diseases who volunteer their time to help us oversee this program and make it possible. We are a national organization. We represent all Americans, but we also work very closely with partners around the world. We have a strategic partnership with EURORDIS, which is the European organization like NORD. We have partnerships with the patient organization in Japan, Australia, Canada, many other parts of the world, because with rare diseases, it's really important to connect wherever we can and to all speak together with one voice. So I mentioned that we do advocacy, and this is on things like advancing rare disease research through providing advocacy for funding for the National Institutes of Health and assuring patient access to affordable treatments, and working with on specific topics such as newborn screening and medical foods reimbursement that are important to the rare disease community. We've also in recent years become more involved in state-based policies, and when we take you on a walk through the website, we'll show you ways that you might get involved in that through our Rare Action Network to look at policies within your own state where you might be able to help educate your own legislators. I mentioned our education programs, and we have programs for patients and families, for physicians and nurses and physician assistants and many different kinds of medical professionals, and also for students. We have a new NORD Student Club program where we're working with students on university campuses to create rare disease clubs for awareness and education. Patient services, we do disease-specific regional patient meetings. We also have patient assistance programs that I'll let Catherine tell you more about later when she speaks. And just in general, we provide information and referrals to anyone who contacts NORD. Sometimes there are, in fact, there are many people with rare diseases who don't have a patient organization specifically for their disease. So NORD serves as the organization for them, and we try to help those people as much as we can. And I mentioned our research grants program. These are not huge grants, but they can be very important seed grants in the sense that if they provide money for study of diseases for which there may not be any other source of funding. And in many cases, if these studies provide good results, then the research may be able to attract larger funding from other sources later. We know of at least 2 cases where projects that began as very small NORD grants ultimately led to FDA-approved products. So this is just a quick look at, to go back to the Orphan Drug Act briefly, and show you how the progress has been upward over the years, and in recent years, approximately 1/3 of the products that have been approved by FDA have been orphan products, which is a huge jump from many years ago. When we take you through the website, we'll talk a little bit about opportunities for you to get involved. But some things you may want to be thinking about are Rare Disease Day. I don't know if all of you are aware of that yet, but you really do want to know about that if your family is affected by a rare disease. It takes place on the last day of February each year. NORD is the national sponsor in the U.S. Every country has a sponsor, but it's done globally around the world on the same date, and we all essentially are articulating the same theme, and really it's all about awareness and education. You can also sign up on our website for our e-news to get monthly news from NORD. We have a patient caregiver speakers bureau. You can find more information about that on our website. And we would encourage you to follow NORD on our social media. We're very active on Facebook and Twitter. And that's it for our formal presentation. So now we'd like to take you onto the website. I will walk you through a few pages, and then I'll turn it over to Marcia to show you how to search for disease information. So I think when you first come to the NORD website, it can be a little bit overwhelming. It's a lot of information, and we've struggled over the years with how to organize it to make it as usable and easy to access as possible. I think one of the big challenges for us is that we're serving a very diverse web audience. We know through tracking our traffic that the people who come into our website include many, many patients and families. They also include people who come as representatives of patient organizations. We have people from the pharmaceutical industry and from other types of companies that work with that industry who come to our website. And we have medical professionals, both clinicians who are taking care of patients, and researchers who come to the site to read about funding opportunities and that sort of thing. So we're, as you can see, in the buttons across the top of the site are one way that we try to organize that information. So when you first come to the site, if I assume that many of you would be coming as individual patients or family members, so you might want to first go to that section on the website. And okay, there we go. So then you can see on the pull-down button there, and we'll go to some of those pages in just a minute, but I'd just like to scroll down a little bit first. So when you first come to the website, each time you come, if you want to see what's new at NORD, what's happening right now, the what's happening at NORD is a good place to go first. You can kind of see what we're promoting right at this time. Things like we're just beginning to post news about our summit, which is our annual conference that takes place in the Washington, D.C. area in October of each year. We also have news about running for RARE, which is something that some of you might want to read about and learn more about. This is a team of runners who have chosen NORD as their charity to raise money for. They started by running the Boston Marathon, and now they run other marathons in other cities, and they raise funds through these marathons and half marathons. And all of the money that they raise goes into a fund for undiagnosed patients at NORD. And specifically, that fund is in Catherine's department, in the patient services department here. So she may want to add a little bit to this, but just to briefly mention it, it's to provide assistance to undiagnosed patients who are applying to the National Institutes of Health Undiagnosed Diseases Network. And it's an area of great need, and we're very grateful to these runners. And one opportunity for you to get involved with, well, first of all, if you're a marathon runner, you're welcome to sign up as a runner, and you can read about that and indicate your interest through our website. But you can also sign up to be a patient partner with a runner. Each runner is paired with a specific individual patient, and that gives the runners inspiration. They get to know their patient a little bit. They blog about their patient, and as they're running, it gives them something to think about and to remind themselves why they're doing what they're doing. So it's a really great program. It's raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's very, very much needed by these undiagnosed patients. And then you can always go see what the rare disease of the day is. Our staff comes up with a different disease every day with 7,000 diseases. There are plenty to work with, and the idea is just to provide a little bit of information. And what NORD is always trying to do is to kind of give equal attention and awareness to all the diseases. There are a few rare diseases that tend to have caught the attention of the media over the years, and so there's some diseases that are better known by the public. So we just kind of try to even the playing field and give attention to everyone. So those are the what's new categories, and then if you scroll down a little bit farther on the page under tools and resources, you'll see resources that are long-term and that remain on on this page on the website indefinitely. And the first of these is what Marcia is going to walk you through in just a minute. That's our rare disease database. And that's where you go to find information about specific rare diseases. Our member resources, if any of you are members of patient organizations, you may want to take a look at the member resources, and if your groups are not yet members of NORD, you can contact us and we can talk to you about the requirements and the benefits of membership. The Rare Action Network is the network that I mentioned within states, so you can go into that page and read about that network and what they do and find out if there is a group formed yet in your state. And if you're interested in getting involved in that, you can connect with our colleague Tim Boyd, who works in NORD's Washington, D.C. office, who oversees that network, and he works really closely with the advocates within the states to help you address issues of importance within your own state. The patient assistance programs are what Catherine will be talking about in just a minute. The physician guides, that will actually take you to a separate website that NORD hosts specifically for physicians. That's part of our physician education program. And these are guides on specific rare diseases that are written for physicians by physicians who are medical experts on those diseases. And then Rare Disease Day, you'll definitely all want to find out about that. And NORD actually does host a separate website on that also. It's at rarediseaseday.us. And if you click on Rare Disease Day on our homepage, you can go to that site and find out more about what happened for Rare Disease Day in 2016 and what will be happening in February 2017 for Rare Disease Day next year. So let's just go back up to the top again for 1 minute and go over to for patients and families. And I just want to quickly tell you about what might come up under that category, and then I'm going to turn it over to Marcia to do some, to walk you through the rare disease database. So if you clicked on rare disease information under for patients and families, that does take you to the page where you can search for disease information, and you can either search alphabetically or you can type the name of the disease into the box. And Marcia will walk you through a couple of searches there. Resources and FAQs, that's a page that's frequently changing, so you may want to check back from time to time. We're always updating that information, but these are some questions that we frequently get asked, and so we just try to have resources and frequently asked questions right there in one place so that you can see if you can find answers there. The state health insurance information is something that our colleagues in Washington put together. You can go to that page and click on your state and find information related to insurance within your state or contacts within your state. Information for your doctor. If you have a physician who is not familiar with your disease or whom you think might benefit from some of this additional information, you can take a look here to see what we might have that you might want to tell your physician about or take to an office visit. And news about patient recruitment is a page where we've listed some clinical trials. These are just ones that we've specifically been asked to list. Obviously, there are many, many more than this, and we always refer everyone to clinicaltrials.gov, which is a U.S. government website, which is the most comprehensive listing of clinical trials. But you can certainly come to this page on our site to see if there's any information about possible clinical trials on your disease. And I think at this point, maybe I'll turn it over to Marcia.
Thank you, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Okay, so as Mary showed you, there are a couple of different ways from the home page to get to the rare disease database. One is to go to the Patients and Families tab and then click on Rare Disease Information. But the quicker way probably is just to go toward the bottom part of the home page under Tools and Resources and click on Rare Disease Database. So this is the landing page for the Rare Disease Database. And this information over here in this box on the right provides an introduction to what our Rare Disease Database is. Essentially, what we have been working on since the very beginning of NORD is a compilation of reports written in what we like to call patient-friendly language, which essentially is our objective anyway, is to write in language that doesn't require you to have a medical background to understand it. If we do use medical terminology, we try to define the medical terms within the report, and we try to present information that is a good introduction for someone who has just received a diagnosis so that they can get a brief overview of that condition, and then through that same report, find access to other disease-specific organizations that can provide more information and support. We currently have over 1,200 reports in the database. We are working to update and expand the offerings all the time. But as Mary mentioned, there are approximately 7,000 diseases that are considered rare. So if you are searching for information on a condition and you don't locate it in our database, we definitely want to encourage you to go to the National Institutes of Health Genetic and Rare Diseases Information Center to look for information there. So I'm going to go through a couple of examples of searching both alphabetically and by using the search box. The first example I'm going to look at is to pull up a condition, galactosemia, by using the alpha search. So I went to the G and clicked on G, and just so happens alphabetically that's the first condition. So when you look at the galactosemia report, the first thing you'll see is an acknowledgement. And many, but not all, of our reports have an acknowledgement. And essentially this is just telling you who the medical expert is who has reviewed the content in this report and vetted the content. We are striving to achieve this for all of our reports, but you may find on occasion that you're searching for a report that does not yet have an acknowledgement. The format of the report is consistent from one report to the next. As you may know, there are many rare and rare conditions that have multiple names. So we try to choose the name that is most commonly used for the condition, but list other synonyms that the condition can also be known as. If there are specific clinical subtypes or different versions of a condition based on different genes being responsible, we try to list those separately as subdivisions. We always have a paragraph or two in the general discussion that gives an overview of what the condition is all about, the characteristics, whether or not early diagnosis is important. In this case, it is particularly because of availability of newborn screening and treatment. The signs and symptoms provide specific information about physical characteristics. The causes section provides information about mode of inheritance, if known, and specific genes that are involved in that condition. The affected population section provides information about incidence and prevalence, if known, and also information about specific ethnic groups that may have a higher likelihood of developing the condition. The related disorders section is meant to provide brief information about conditions that may in some ways be similar to the condition that you searched on. There may be some similarities in physical findings, symptoms, sometimes similarities within in terms of the genetic background of the condition. Essentially, you know, to help understand if you are searching on a condition and you don't yet have a diagnosis, what are some of the other conditions that may be similar that you might also want to look into. And frequently, when we provide a paragraph about another related disorder, we then refer you to searching in the rare disease database for more information about that condition. The diagnosis section will provide information about what's involved in making a diagnosis, be that a physical exam or perhaps a molecular genetic test. The standard therapy section discusses information about any FDA-approved products to treat the condition, or if there is considered to be a standard of care in the medical community about how to treat the condition, we would discuss that there. The investigational therapy section occasionally will include specific information about a therapy that is in a clinical trial at present, or perhaps if there is a certain medication that might be used off-label to treat the condition. But for the most part, because this is such a rapidly changing, area, we tend to refer people. Thanks, Kristen. We tend to refer people to the other organizations that can provide information about what clinical trials are currently ongoing. And then at the end of this, there is a listing of organizations that can provide more information about the condition. We always list the NORD member organizations at the top in alphabetical order, followed by other organizations that are also in our organizational database that may be able to provide additional information. And those are also in alphabetical order. We follow with references, separated by textbooks, journal articles, and internet references. And we have the copyright year, which in this case is 2015. Now, the benefit of using the alpha search bar is if you're not sure how to spell the condition, you might be better off going and doing your search that way. Because if you did choose to search in this box, where is that box? Over here, it is very sensitive to spelling errors, and if you did accidentally transpose a letter or something of that nature, you might get a message that there is no information on that condition. The benefit of using this search box is you can search on synonyms here. So, for example, if you don't know of the condition to be called galactosemia, but you know of it as GALT deficiency, you can type in GALT, and you have to put your cursor right on that magnifying glass. Is it going? Yeah. I guess it's a little slow. But essentially, you will come up with the same result. It will refer you to the galactosemia report, and then you can click on it and you'll have your information there. So I want to run through just a couple of other examples. Michelle had mentioned that one condition that might be of interest was eosinophilic esophagitis. So I'm going to go up to the E's and pull up that report. It's not happening yet. Okay, there we are.
Marcia,
Yes.
could you show us how it searches the acronym on that one? Will it look up EOE?
I'm going to let you do this. You want to know if you put EOE in the search box, whether eosinophilic esophagitis will come up? Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay. I think that it wouldn't come up because I don't think that that's listed as a synonym on the report, but we'll take a look at the report just to be sure.
It did not.
Yeah. We can add synonyms very easily to reports. So, if there is a well-known synonym and you're not seeing it on our report and it's causing you difficulty, or it's caused difficulty for someone else in locating that report, please reach out to me because we definitely want to make the information easy to find.
Because I see it listed as capital E, small o, capital E. And that's just how I see it listed. But I think on your website, there it is.
In other places, that's how you see it listed?
Yeah, there it is. Oh.
Okay. So here's the report.
It didn't catch it, but it's listed as an acronym there under general discussion.
Right, but it's not a synonym.
Right.
Oh,
good point.
I see.
So, good point. So, what I'm going to do after our meeting today is make sure that we add EOE to the synonyms. And hopefully, if somebody is searching on EOE, that it will allow them then, if they put that in the search box over here, to pull up that report very readily.
And so, I just wanted to show.
Is there a question?
No, I just wanted to show that you can search disorders also, not just diseases.
Right. I mean, we don't differentiate really between diseases, disorders, syndromes. Our only qualifier really as to whether a report is appropriate for the rare disease database is if it's a rare condition, meaning that it affects fewer than 200,000 Americans. So there are syndromes in here, there are diseases, there are disorders, and as I said, we're working all the time to expand that database. Now, if you wanted to print this report, you just have to hit that print button and then the print over here. And you can take that. Sometimes folks like to take copies of reports to their doctor's offices if they have a new physician who isn't familiar with the condition and want to give them an overview. So I think I'm going to move on now because we've covered a couple of examples there. I want to show you another opportunity to search for rare disease information, and that's through our organizational database. So I'm going to go back to the home page. And under Patients and Families, there is, under Connect with Others, Find a Patient Organization. So, for example, if you've searched our rare disease database and you haven't located a report on a condition that you're interested in, you may want to look to see if we have an organization in our database regarding that condition. So I'm going to put in creatine. Thinking of creatine deficiencies. And you will see that we have an organization called the Association for Creatine Deficiencies in our ODB. If you page down, you'll see that it is a NORD member organization. It has the NORD logo here, and if you wanted to go to look at what that organization has to offer, you just can go directly to the website. Okay, so I think in the interest of time, and we want to allow questions, I'm going to move on and let Catherine talk to you about patient services, but we will take more questions at the end.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I have the great privilege to lead both the financial assistance and the research programs here at NORD. And as Mary shared with you, we have two areas of concern. First of all, access to treatment and care we recognize as being the primary concern of all individuals when being diagnosed with a rare disorder. And second to that, unfortunately, 95% of the rare disorders do not have a treatment at this current time. So our goal is, of course, to help in that research and also to make sure if there is a treatment available that patients are able to have access to it. So if we get back up to the main homepage where we are here, there's two areas for getting into our area in regards to patient assistance programs. You can either access it here under help to access medications, and that's a little bit of a misnomer because we do more than just help to get to medications, and so we're going to be changing that. And then also, I'm sorry, I'm not on the home page. Oh, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. So you'll see it here for patients and families, patient assistance programs in this arena, or if you go a little further down, you'll also see patient assistance programs here. I'm sorry, does someone have a question?
Okay. Think so.
Okay. So we're going to go into the patient assistance program area, and our programs are called Rare Care Assistance Programs. And my team is located here in Danbury, Connecticut, but our hours Monday through Thursday in recognition of the time differences throughout the country, especially for the Heartland. We are here till 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday, and 9 to 6 on Fridays. So if someone is interested in seeing if we have an assistance program, and we have several of them, because we do provide assistance to many thousands of patients every year, what you need to do is come into these three different areas, and primarily the first two would be of interest to you. And I'm going to go into the disease assistance programs by clicking on this circle. It's a little bit slow right now, but what this allows you to do is actually view the programs that we have available today with the contact information for team members dedicated to those programs. So as you can see, we have all of our listing of our diseases: alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, chronic non-infectious uveitis, for example. And what this identifies then is a contact phone number, an email, and a fax number, which you can go ahead and contact, and you will get a representative who will speak to you about our program and then determine if you are eligible. And these are three of our questions that we will be asking you. First of all, if you have a defined diagnosis that meets one of those disease states, and if you're currently living in the United States, and then if you meet our financial need criteria, and we can assess that with a conversation with you in a matter of minutes to determine whether or not you meet our financial eligibility requirements. So this is something that you can research in your own time to see if we have something that would be available to you. We also have medication-specific assistance programs, so if you are on a medication and you would like to look in this area, we can determine whether or not we have something that would be available to you. Or we also are fortunate in that we partner with some particular researchers, and if there's a clinical trial going on right now, again, to ensure that patients are able to access that, we have travel programs where with these researchers we provide reimbursements for patients who have to travel to see their physician or participate in the studies. So these are the things we offer, but again, with these disease-specific assistance programs, we can provide support for premium assistance in some of them, co-pay assistance for testing, as well as lab work, and then also for the medications themselves if they are available. And as Mary already referenced, we do have a program with the NIH in regards to the undiagnosed program that they have going on right now, because some of the testing, especially for genetic testing, that can be quite expensive. So we are very fortunate to have funding from these runners in order to be able to make sure that patients are, who are entered into that program can have access to those testing criteria to determine if a diagnosis can be made. So we are constantly searching for funding from all parties, from manufacturers, from member organizations, from individuals, in order to be able to continue to support these programs we have currently, to add more programs to our offerings, and also to continue to do valuable research in all this regard. Now, if you find that we do not have a program available to you, you can come back up to the head of this page, and it says here other resources, so more resources in regards to where you may be able to go if we do not have an assistance program listed for you. There's other links that you may be able to take advantage of. We'll reference you to either other foundations similar to us or to a manufacturer who may be able to provide you with specific assistance if you do have a drug indicated for your disorder. Okay, thank you so much for your time. We want to leave room for questions.
So, Catherine, this is Michelle, and I just want to clarify a couple things to make sure I understood correctly. So, if my son has a condition and I'm not sure where that condition fits, can I call and talk to someone and get assistance to make sure that I am requesting assistance under the right program?
Absolutely. Don't hesitate. We have a general information line under patient assistance. So,
okay.
Yes, absolutely. Here, as you can see, how to get started. If you do not see a patient assistance program, please contact us for more information at this 800 number. And again, through these hours that we were here, we do have, as I said, I have a great team of 16 people who are here to help you. And if you're not familiar with walking through this website and you have a question, they will certainly answer that for you or try to refer you to another resource that may be of assistance.
And those resources change as funding changes because you're constantly looking for other funding resources.
You bet. We are constantly looking for other funding resources as part of my daily endeavors to reach out and try to get access to more money, because that's our goal. Again, one of our primary pillars of our missions, as Mary said, is to make sure that we eliminate that barrier to access. And to be honest with you, I would love to, I'm glad I have research as part of my responsibilities, because I would love my area of ownership in terms of access to be a moot point, that everyone has equal access to any opportunities that are available. I'd love to be out of that part of my job. So that's our goal. Okay, we're here for any other questions.
Hi, this is Anna. Just a reminder, your lines are not muted. If you are self-muted, please unmute your line and feel free to ask a question.
I have a question. This is Paula in Iowa. That isn't related specifically to the website, but I do take your newsletter, and oftentimes there are positions and things you take. And what I'm curious about is in a recent newsletter, I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me, I can't give you a specific example, but there was a position paper where NORD has taken a position on some rules for genetic funding. I'm sorry, it wasn't genetic funding, but genetics and insurance, and how that impacts somebody if they're covered by employer insurance. And what I couldn't find is an action. One of my responsibilities is in my state. I write a health newsletter that goes to over 6,000 families, and I really would have liked to have shared that, but But the challenge given to me by my boss was, well, what's the action? What's the call to action? And she didn't want to put that out there unless we gave very specifics to families. We shared this with you. This is what you could do to impact that or make a change. Is there somewhere on your website that I could go when I see those kinds of things and bring those up?
There is, you could go in under the heading of Advocate at the top of the website, and there may be information there. There is not always an action associated with every position that we may publicize, but very often the action would be that we would be inviting individuals to, we would be inviting typically patient organizations to join us in what we call a sign-on letter, which is a letter that NORD would be submitting to members of Congress or a specific congressional committee or some other government agency, and in which we would invite, not necessarily, it's kind of seldom that we would invite individuals just because we cover so many diseases to sign a letter of that type. But we do often, our policy team often submits, circulates information about a specific issue, and they'll ask people to contact their congressman about it. And we do have pages on our website where you can go on when you receive an email of that type, and typically something like that might also be summarized in our monthly newsletter. But you would click on the link there and go on to the page on our website and just enter, I think, your zip code, and then you can, the message that you write would go directly to your members of Congress. So it's a great point, and we appreciate you raising it, and it's really important for, we want people to be able to join us in action. I don't recall the specific instance that you're talking about. I'm not sure which position that was. But
I can follow up with an email, and I just wondered, not only am I a parent of someone who has a rare genetic disorder, and he's now 26, and you guys over the years have been my go-to source, but I also do a lot of policy work at our state level as well as nationally. I've testified a couple of times in front of Congress, and I would have, and so I always try to share those kinds of things because I do think they're important, and I do think, you know, I think your statement that, you know, disability is a family impact, not only an individual impact, and so we try to get that kind of information out in front of the families that we work with. So thank you. I will definitely, I will look up that newsletter and share something more specific with you.
That would be great, and we are very much a grassroots organization, so we really appreciate your interest in being involved.
Yeah, and we are too. I'm one of the parent co-founders of our organization, and we now have a couple federal grants, and again, we're here because of that kind of grassroots policy. We wouldn't be here otherwise.
Sounds great. Are there any other questions?
We have 2 more minutes if anyone has, or a minute now, if anyone has a question. If not, we will be sharing this recording with everyone else later. So thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you all our presenters for taking the time to coordinate with Michelle and get this webinar scheduled.
Thank you so much.
Very appreciate it.
Thanks very much.
Great webinar. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.